Hey, race fans, Hall of Famer Darrell Waltrip here. You know, it's time to drop the green flag on another edition of Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator, powered by Pace-O-Matic. So, hey, pull those belts tight one more time. Here's my buddy Hermie Sadler and Senator Bill Stanley. Boogity, boogity, boogity. Let's see what they have to say, boys and girls.
Hello, everybody. I'm Senator Bill Stanley, and I'm leaning right.
And I'm Hermie Sadler, and I'm turning left with Sadler and the Senator, powered by Pace-O-Matic. What's going on?
Man, living the dream. We are cooking through the first part of the General Assembly session. I just got back from presenting a bill in finance, which usually when one of my bills goes to finance, it gets killed in finance. I don't know why. They're all my friends. But today was pretty good. But we are just hopping. Today is a busy day in the General Assembly. You know, we only got 60 days to do the Lord's work here for the people of Virginia. And so here I am, sitting high atop the Stanley Law Group building in the Stanley Law Group conference room, right here in beautiful downtown Richmond, the capital of the Commonwealth.
And I like to remind everybody that the naming rights to this Taj Mahal of podcast studios is still up for grabs.
It is up for grabs. And
to the highest bidder.
And the price is going up because we're getting so much interest.
We are?
Yeah, people, golly, my phone rings off the hook.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
So I'm not the only one you don't call back.
No, I'm too busy taking calls, trying to get the naming rights secured here for the Stanley Law Group conference room studios.
So if you read the newspaper or watch the TV, they all characterize this General Assembly session as chippy.
Chippy is exactly right.
Would you subscribe to that theory?
I would.
And why?
I would. And I think a couple things have happened. One, I think there was an expectation on the part of the Democrats because for the last 4 years, they've had the House. Well, for the last 2 years, they've had the House and the Senate. For the last 4 years, they've had the governor's mansion, the lieutenant governor, and the attorney general. So in November's elections, which were sweeping change, we changed leadership in the House. The Republicans took the majority by two-seat advantage. The Senate stays the same because we run every 4 years, so it's 21-19 in favor of the Democrats. But we now have the governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general, and they're all Republicans. And it's important for the lieutenant governor's position because Winsome Sears, who we're going to hopefully have on one of our future podcasts in the near future.
She loves me.
She does love you. And she breaks any tie. So if one Democrat crosses over, then she could break the tie, and we could get a very conservative piece or a common sense piece out of the Senate that would go on to the governor for signature. I think what you're seeing right now is the self-prescribed, self-described brick wall caucus, which is in the Senate. They are determined to defeat anything that sounds, looks, or smells like a conservative or common piece of legislation. They don't want to undo the agenda that they were able to accomplish in those 2 years because, as I've described it, those past 2 years were like a political jewelry store smash and grab. They had all the offices, so they put through a very liberal agenda. They were able to accomplish that, and they don't want to go backwards on what they've been able to accomplish. What we really were able to do, because the Senate is still in Democrat control, is stop the bleeding, kind of like putting a stick in the spoke of a wheel, stop more of those what we would call bad bills or liberal agenda bills from going forward. But we're not really right now able to accomplish much in terms of rolling some of that back. They're standing firm on keeping that which they got into the books, into the statutes, and not being reasonable on maybe some of those things were going a little too far. So you see a lot of that chippiness in the Senate. I think usually when we all get back, because we all like each other, there's 40 of us, we like each other. We text with each other, we call each other. But this year when we got back, usually, the first week or two, it's very collegial, very friendly. It started chippy right out of the box, and it hasn't stopped.
So they were probably disappointed in, I guess, the way some of the elections may have turned out, knowing that they didn't have a stamp of approval in the other chamber in the House. That probably led to some of the not so friendliness.
Yeah, and I think what they know is that any of the bills that they could get out from the Senate are going to be killed by the House. Mm-hmm. Any of the bills that get out of the House, they're going to try to kill in the Senate when we have crossover, which comes in a couple weeks.
So a question I get a lot that maybe you could answer. So now we're back to a situation where we've got a House that's controlled by the Republicans, Senate controlled by the Democrats. What kind of authority does the governor actually have when bills reach him or when the budget reaches him? What actually can he do?
Well, you start with three principles. The first thing is much like the executive branch in the federal government, he can rule by executive order. We saw a lot of those executive orders with Governor Northam through the pandemic. There's something like 50, 60 of those that went through not the legislative process. He was able to call an emergency, a state of emergency in Virginia, which then allowed him to rule by fiat. We thought that was unfair. We thought the legislature should be involved. So that's one way that the governor can have it. At this point in time, the governor has the ability to sign bills into law. He has the ability to veto those bills. He can amend those bills, send them back for our consideration, and we either accept or reject, and he can sign or veto them based on whether we accepted the amendments or rejected them. And then basically, that's all he can do. The third thing that he can probably try to do is try to persuade some people, because ultimately what we have to do in Virginia, unlike the federal government, is we have to balance our budget. We have to present a 2-year biennium, what we call a biennium budget. So he has a lot of input in that. The outgoing governor, weird enough, presents the budget. The new incoming governor proposes amendments. They go through 2 committees in the House and the Senate. They're all fixed and reworked. We as legislators offer budget amendments to try to get in some money. Like I offered a budget amendment to try to fund the NASCAR Stock Car Heritage Trail in Virginia so we can help some of these short tracks and bring racing back to the grassroots level and really encourage small businesses in our rural areas. I wonder if that will stay in or not. So he gets a lot of the authority in that he can tweak the budget right now. But when we pass that balanced budget and we send it on to him, he can make amendments, accept or reject. And what he does have it as a power that our president of the United States does not is a line item veto. So he could reject the whole budget out of whole cloth, but rather he has a red pen that he can line through things. So he can reject certain provisions of what is a very big budget, usually 3 or 4 inches thick budget. And so that gives him a lot more authority and a lot more leverage in negotiating that final plan, which includes then getting across the line certain legislative priorities that he may have.
Without putting a political spin on it, which I know is difficult, and this is probably an unfair question to you, but all that being said, what, for people that don't know or have yet to meet, or because Governor Youngkin has only been in office a short period of time, what should the people listening to this podcast and the people of the Commonwealth of Virginia, what kind of person, or what should they expect from this governor?
Well, Hermie, that's a great question, because I think what he has demonstrated is that he's true to his word. Every campaign promise that he made, and he had a day one agenda, he has been acting upon here in Richmond. And he's doing it without a net, without a lot of experience, with some natural allies. And certainly we've seen the Democrats standing up, railing against him and the Attorney General Jason Miyares for what I would think silly and sometimes ridiculous things, for them exerting the same power and authority that, by God, their governors, when they were Democrats for the last 8 years, exerted. I think what you can see is, as he learns, and he's learning on the job, he's still staying true to those statements that he made, to those people that came out to those rallies and those people that voted for him, because he said, I'm going to do it this way, and he's doing it this way. Whether he succeeds, there's always that big bump in front of him, and that's the General Assembly.
And we'll get to this at some point. We've talked about it a couple of times. Next time you talk to the governor or talk to the people on the budget committees in the House and the Senate, I've got a pretty good idea of where we can come up with $130 to $140 million of revenue. Is that right? To put in the budget.
That's not easy to find. I mean, you're talking new revenue.
I'm talking new revenue.
And it's not marijuana.
It's not marijuana.
Really?
And we've proven that we can do it. We collected it during a 1-year tax and regulation period under the ABC. And we helped small businesses at the same time.
Really?
We helped pay people's salaries. We helped give them raises during the pandemic. We helped them provide more infrastructure to their businesses. We did all those things and helped the hundreds and hundreds of small business owners and operators across the Commonwealth, and generated $130 to $140 million in new revenue. And that the whole plan is just sitting there.
Hermie, have we ever talked about this before?
I'm not sure we have.
I mean, if you had to sum it up in 2 words, what 2 words would you use? Because I'm sure we'll talk about this a lot more in the future.
Skill games.
What? Skill games?
Skill games.
Skill games. Hundreds of millions of dollars.
Think about this.
Modernizing
Senator.
schools.
Senator.
Saving our economy.
Think about this.
Tax rebates for our citizens. Freedom, liberty, bald eagles.
Do we need
Skill games.
Do we need to help our schools.
Yes, we do.
I mean, governor has talked about trying to eliminate a grocery tax.
Yes, we are.
We could slide right in there.
That's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I wonder
It
why I
should
hadn't thought
be.
about
It should be, and apparently it's not for some reason. It should be a win-win-win for everybody involved.
that. It sounds too easy. And as things go in the General Assembly and in politics as well, when it's too easy and when it makes too much sense, it doesn't have a chance. But this one sounds like a winner to me. And I think
We'll talk more about that.
we
But
will.
we got a special guest today,
We do.
and you've been telling me ever since I've known you what a great attorney you are
I am.
and how humble you are
I am.
and all of that.
Yes.
And one of the people that you've attributed all of your success,
Gil Davis.
I'm trying to set the stage for just an overwhelming introduction of our guest.
Lay it on me, Big
And you're not
Daddy.
helping.
I'm sorry. I'm in the way.
I'm going to let you introduce him, but I'm saying you've been telling me that all the things that you've accomplished and why everybody loves you and your law practice is in high demand and why we're sitting here in the Taj Mahal of the Stanley Law Group in downtown Richmond, even though we don't have a sponsor for the naming rights of the studio
I'm
yet.
working on it.
That's coming. You said, have always told me one of the people that mentored you early in your career was our guest today. So now the good news is I get to ask the source to verify some of this junk you've been telling me.
This isn't the one you need to ask those questions to. This guy right here. Let me, and thank you for letting me have the introduction. When I was a young attorney, and we talked a little bit about this on the first podcast, started working for a guy named Gil Davis. In fact, I walked into his office one day and I said, look, I'm going to law school. You know, my father passed away. I want to learn how to be a trial lawyer. That's what I want to be. Will you teach me? And he wasn't paying much attention to me. I just walked into his office. A little lady named Betty let me through, and she probably regretted it afterwards. But I'm like, I'll write, I'll do this, I'll do that. And he was working on a piece of paper, and I said, and I'll work for you for free. And his head shot up like like some kind of noise behind him, and he went, "Oh, you work for free?" And I said, "Yes, Mr. Davis, Gil Davis, I'll work for free." And he said, "I'm going on a 2-week trip. You're going to be my driver, and I'll teach you about the law." And I was like, "Okay, great." I went back home. I told my mom, I said, I got this job at this law firm with this guy named Gil Davis. She goes, "Do you know him?" I said, "No." "We're going on a 2-week trip." She goes, "How do you know what will happen if you don't come back?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, what if he's a masher, a murderer? What? I said, "Oh, I guess I'll see you in 2 weeks, or I won't see you in 2 weeks." And that started an odyssey for me to not only learn about the law from a great trial lawyer, but also to come into contact with great people. And one of those great people is sitting across from me right now here in the beautiful Stanley Law Group building, high atop Richmond, Virginia, a friend of mine for so many years who was a part of one of the greatest cases ever in the history of the United States jurisprudence, Joseph P. Cammarata. Joe, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bill.
And let me just say this. Joe graduated undergrad from Georgetown, still didn't become a liberal, went to St. John's Law School, resisted becoming a liberal, started a law practice with he started his law practice with the United States Attorney's Office in Washington, D.C.
The Department of Justice, yeah.
The Department of Justice. And through his time, and I'm going to read this just the way he wrote it. In that time, since that moment forward, he has been awarded the Outstanding Attorney Award by the U.S. Department of Justice in 1989, when he was just a baby. Super lawyer of the Washington, D.C. area since 2007. Top 100 super lawyers in Washington, D.C. from 2012 to 2017. Must have fallen off after 2017.
I'm still on that list.
Oh, really? Well, you got to update your website.
You know.
Who's who in American law? Who's who in America? Who's who in the world? Joe Cammarata. I mean, wow. See, now, I tell you what a great lawyer I am. Obviously, I don't have this on my resume. I don't have this on my website.
I'm sure we'll get to the point in this conversation where Joe is going to admit to our entire listening audience how you helped elevate him to where he's at.
And that
also,
if he doesn't, we'll dub it back in, and I'll do the best impression I can of him. No, Bill Stanley was great. So, Joe, you're here today in the capital of Richmond, not just to do this podcast. You're here for a purpose. Do you want to tell our listeners exactly why you're here and why it's so important?
Sure. Well, I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. I've heard so much about this podcast, and have been chomping.
All good, right?
All good. Chomping at the bit to try to get in, and Bill said, "All right, today's the day." And what's important about this day is not certainly the podcast, but also what we're going to be presenting to the Senate today. It's a bill that Bill Stanley has sponsored. It's a bill to modify the malpractice cap.
Why don't you tell us what a malpractice cap is?
In Virginia, if someone is harmed through the negligence of a healthcare provider and suffers damages, and they seek a judgment in court against that doctor, well, the judgment, the amount that they can recover is limited. There's a cap. There's a ceiling on the amount of recovery that a person who's harmed through no fault of their own can recover. That cap presently is about $2.4 million, and it changes $50,000 a year, depending on when the harm occurred. And what brought me here was I had a case, a friend of mine, Nancy, who her husband reached out to me, and she had undergone routine back surgery. She had a history of chronic back pain. And so she reached out to a neurosurgeon who said, "Yeah, listen, let me do an operation on your lower back. I think that what we're going to find that you may have some residual back pain intermittently, but you stand a 70% chance of full recovery." Well, what happened is that the day of the operation, Nancy's placed flat face down on the operating table. The doctor is going to approach the lower back by going in the back. And the purpose in doing that is so he can avoid nicking or interfering or destroying the structures, the anatomy in the front, in the chest area and the stomach area. Well, unfortunately, during the operation, the doctor is cleaning out the disc space, and his instrument goes too far. It goes through the disc, it goes through the muscle of the ligament, and then it cuts the common iliac artery, the artery that feeds blood to the brain. Well, during the operation, Nancy is without oxygen for 23 minutes. They bring her back, but they bring her back to a life of 24-hour dependence care that will cost over $9.3 million over her lifetime. And unfortunately, there was a lawsuit that we brought. The jury rendered a verdict of some $34 million. And the cap at the time was $2.2 million. And so Nancy was not able to realize what the jury had awarded her. So what I undertook to do was to correct that injustice. People that are catastrophically injured through no fault of their own, that have suffered negligence at the hands of a doctor, need full and complete justice. And so I reached out to Senator Stanley, to Bill, and he said, absolutely, this is an injustice. I'll put forth a bill to modify the cap. And so that's why we're here. It's a long-winded explanation. I apologize. But we're here to right a wrong, to make sure that we're all equal before the bar of justice, and that people who suffer harm, catastrophic harm, at the hands of healthcare providers can get complete justice. But there's a monumental push against this by the medical lobby, the insurance industry, who would have you believe that if you make this change to protect people in such circumstances where there's catastrophic injury, that the sky is going to cave in, that the world as we know it will come to an end, that premiums will rise, and that the doctors will be selling hot dogs as opposed to working on people. And that's just not true. When we open the doors, let the fresh air come in, and cast away the smoke and mirrors, and you get to the facts are that we will be just okay in Virginia if we modify this cap and let the citizens of Virginia do what's right.
What exactly, in layman's terms, as much as possible, what exactly is this bill? In this bill, are you asking to be changed, or What are we trying to accomplish?
In this bill, what we're asking for is if a person suffers medical malpractice and suffers a permanent impairment of bodily function or a permanent brain injury, then there is no cap on the amount that a jury can award. There is no limit. Whatever the evidence provides will be awarded and then hopefully paid by the insurance company.
Because remember this, Hermie, the public policy reasoning behind this bill is because many times the care itself is in excess of the cap. And
Right.
so there's not even enough money to care for Nancy. So who pays for the care of Nancy? Well, you know who pays? It's the taxpayer, because they're forced to go on Medicaid, Medicare many times that this happens, and we end up paying it, not the insurance companies. And the funny thing, the horrible thing, not funny, about Joe's case is clearly liability was there. It wasn't a question of liability. The insurance company didn't even fight it.
No, they did fight it. But the literature was such that this is such a rare circumstance to go in from the back and cut an artery three structures deep. There's no reason for it except malpractice.
But they didn't settle. They didn't just say, here's the cap amount.
They didn't settle because they know that in Virginia there is a cap. Because they know that it would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to bring this case. It cost me $300,000 approximately to bring that case. Okay? And they knew it. And they also know that more often than not, 75, 80% of the time when a plaintiff, when somebody who's harmed brings an action against a doctor, that the doctor wins, the hospital wins. And so there's no incentive to try to settle a case. One thing they didn't contest was this. We put on evidence that the damages that Nancy suffered were real. She has a brain injury. She's needs 24-hour care. And the cost of that care, the cost of that harm is $9.3 million. They didn't put on one person to contest $1 of that $9.3 million.
See, we're here in the General Assembly to stop miscarriages of justice. That's one of those. And, you know, when Joe approached me 2 years ago about this, I said, this is his first thing. I was like, nah, I'm not doing that. Because the lobby's really big. But when he told me the reasons behind it, I said, okay, I'll do it. But you have to understand, this is probably a 3 to 5 year fight. These things don't change overnight. You've got to change hearts and minds and overcome a lobby and that lobby's influence on the General Assembly and how it moves. And so we're here in year 2. I expect to be back here year 3, year 4, year 5, and then we'll get it across the line in many of the same ways that it's taken me to pass very important and significant legislation in the General Assembly that matters so much to people, but you've got to change the hearts and minds, and it takes repetition.
Well, to Bill's credit, he has said, I'm in this for the long haul. He said that to me privately, but he's more importantly said it to publicly, out loud, to his fellow senators, to the medical lobby. Hey, look, you can beat me this time, but I'm coming back next year. You can beat me again, I'm coming back. And, you know, it was surprising that after the presentation, I went back and listened to the tape in preparation for this second round. There were senators that recognized that it's time to do something about the cap, that this doesn't make sense where we are now in society. And so, yes, they know, though, that Bill is coming back, and little by little,
like a cold
I know
sore.
Bill's going to get it. He's going. You could put a breathe on it, but it's going to come back.
Here's two
coming to
things that I've learned. I've learned more than I care to about the General Assembly and a little bit about law and things of that nature. I do know Bill will not give up on a cause that is important to him or close to his heart. I also know that I no longer like the term lobbyist. Not my favorite word.
There you go.
But while we take a break, I want to remind everybody that Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator is sponsored by Pace-O-Matic. Pace-O-Matic is an entertainment company which develops gaming software that players love to play and can use their skills to win every single time. Plus, these games of skill provide vital revenue to keep family-owned businesses like bars, restaurants, convenience stores, and truck stops thriving. And Bill, did I mention that I've got a pretty good idea of where Governor Youngkin, when you get into his ear, we can slide $130, $140 million into his budget.
You did mention that.
Okay, just want to make
And
sure.
it's a brilliant mention. It really is.
NMLS number 65084, equal housing lender. Phew. Christmas is finally behind us, but are you dreading those credit card bills headed your way? Well, here's a pro tip. Don't get stuck making minimum payments in the new year. SaveWithConrad.com can help you get rid of your credit card debt just like that. Oh, and we're going to get you the best deal on a mortgage you've ever had. But how's this for starters? No payments until March. You don't need money out of your pocket or perfect credit, so find out how much money you can save for free right now at SaveWithConrad.com.
Hi, folks. This is Hermie Sadler. Thanks for listening to our all-new podcast, Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator. I hope you are enjoying the show as much as Senator Stanley and I enjoy bringing it to you. Whether you're a family traveling together or a truck driver hauling freight up and down the highway, I hope you will take the time to visit one of our Sadler Travel Plaza locations in Virginia and North Carolina. Sadler Travel Plaza locations are licensed dealer locations for Pilot Travel Centers. And we also carry Shell Motiva petroleum products for our four-wheel friends. We pride ourselves on providing one-stop shopping for service, food, and entertainment. Our food options include Five Guys Burgers and Fries, Quiznos, Dairy Queen, Hermie Sadler's Faux Show Bar and Grill, Victory Lane Restaurant, Hunt Brothers Pizza, Dunkin' Donuts, and much, much more. Our locations include Sadler Travel Plaza in South Hill, located off I-85 at exit 12, the Sadler Travel Plaza of Emporia, which is conveniently located on exit 11B off I-95, and Sadler Travel Plaza on Highway 58 in Suffolk. We also have our North Carolina location, Sadler Travel Plaza in Dunn, North Carolina, that's exit 75 off I-95. We appreciate all of our customers. And Bill and I appreciate you listening to Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator, powered by Pace-O-Matic.
Now, look, we're getting back to Joe Cammarata, and I love your advocacy, and I'll always say this on the podcast to everyone who listens. You need to care about your government, because the government will do things that may be adverse to your interest if you don't care. So advocacy is really the heart of where a democracy works at its best. So Joe's up here not advocating for trial lawyers. And I'm not either. We're advocating for Nancy. And that's the most important thing. It's also what we do as advocates, as attorneys. And I remember back in, I guess it was 1991. When did you come on board with Gil Davis? This scrawny little guy comes in and says, "Hey, can I have a job?
How you doing? I need a job.
I need some money." And let's talk about how you and I met.
Y'all have funny accent.
Yeah.
Well, I just put it on.
Tell us how
I
you and I
don't talk
met.
like that. I don't
Mine,
talk.
by the way, is not a put on.
No. Yours is legit. I wish I had, the ability to speak like you do, because there's a certain charm. There's a certain softness to it.
Oh, thank you so much. Softness.
But it makes the point. When they hear somebody with a Northeast accent, they say, "Oh, geez, let's put up our defenses." When they see you coming and listen, they'll at least listen to you.
Most of the time.
We got to beat them up first.
Okay, let's just
right,
have a
what do we
little.
got?
Let's have a little bit here. I want you to say, "What's up, dickhead?" Say it.
I got to say, dickhead.
Yeah, it's a family show.
Okay. What's up, dickhead?
All right, Hermie, you say it.
What's up, dickhead?
See, there's the difference.
What's your point?
Nothing. I have no point whatsoever. Nothing. Let's get back to
what's up, dickhead? Head.
See, now you can play this back and
Hey,
you
we
can learn how
had
to talk
we
like a
had
real
an
American.
interesting conversation. I was looking for a writing utensil a moment ago, and I asked the able Mr. Chad Monday,
Our executive producer.
of Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator. I asked for a pen, and he said, "What?" And you said, "What?"
I said I thought you had to go to the bathroom.
So y'all say pen.
Pen.
I say pen.
Peeing.
Yeah.
Sounds like
what are you doing out in the
back?
backyard right now? Peeing. See?
Well,
Same
it could
thing.
be peeing.
No, that's
or-
taking a leak.
Yeah, right. I thought he was trying to hold two things together. He needs a peeing.
Oh, see, now that's probably the New Yorker in you.
For this podcast only, we can say pen.
Do you notice how you stick your tongue out like pen?
One of my best friends in the world, and we're getting off subject a little bit, which we tend to do.
Yeah.
But one of my best friends that I raced with for years, did TV with for years, Phil Parsons, younger brother of the legendary Benny Parsons. Mm-hmm. Well, I raced with Phil for years, did TV with him for 15 years, but he would always, I say, "Good morning, Phil." And he said, "Hermie." Phil's originally from Detroit area. My name has one syllable, not two. So I'd say, "Good morning, Phil." He said, "It's Phil." One syllable. Well, he get kind of angry about it.
Yeah, I love how you stick out the tongue when you try to talk normal.
I kind of spit a little bit too when I do y'all's accent.
Y'all's.
Yeah.
I'm from down your way.
Yeah, but you say 10.
Sure. Well, because look, my dad was military, so we lived all over the United States. I didn't have a choice. I couldn't go in there in California and go, "Anybody got a pen?"
I tell you, like my
I
dad
get
would
beat
say,
up again.
you
You know,
like my
after you get
dad
beat
would
up
say,
3 times, that's
"Hey."
enough.
Tell you what my dad would say. I tell you what, the people that need to understand me understand me.
That's your dad, the philosophy of fathers. Indeed. So, Joe, you know, this is our back and forth, and that's what makes this so entertaining, at least for us. We love this. Hopefully
I'm glad
the
I'm
listeners
here.
do.
Thank you.
You know, let's talk about when you got to what was called Gilbert K. Davis and Associates.
Yes.
How did you get there?
I had started my own practice and was looking for work. And so I cold called Gil, much the same like you did. And I heard on the street that if it was good enough for Bill Stanley, I could make my way in there. So I had an interview with Gil. I spoke to him. I said, "Hey, you need some help?" "Well, of course."
That's the Gil Davis impression.
That's the Gil Davis impression.
What? Outrageous. That's Gil.
And we love him to death. I mean, he's just one great attorney, one great person. But so anyway, that was it. I said, "Listen, I'm happy to work with you. If you need some help on cases, we'll work out an arrangement. You know, some sort of fee split." And I was off to the races. He let me accompany him and Bill to southwestern part of Virginia, to parts that I didn't even know existed. Martinsville, Tazewell, or they don't say Tazewell. It's
Tazewell.
Here we go.
Tazewell. It's like Missouri.
Tazzle. Don't they say Tazzle?
No, Tazewell.
Tazzle?
Just kind of wool. Just kind of end it like that. Tazewell.
Tuzzle.
Well, you got to put a little L in there.
Oh.
Good Lord.
Anyway, I say Tazewell.
I'm not even going to try to say that word.
Tazewell.
So anyway,
It's Tazwell.
spent a lot of time in going down to Martinsville and Tazewell.
I remember a couple of those trips.
Yes, right.
Yeah,
That's
you
not the
introduced
subject.
us to
That's not the
Galliano,
subject.
one day.
Galliano's was a very good friend of mine until it wasn't.
The next morning was not the best that we'd ever put out.
No.
Now, I was his law clerk and Gil's law clerk, so by proxy, I was your law clerk as well. And as you were starting to get going, you know, you had cases, we did cases together, and Gil was always kind of like the Papa Bear, always the learned one, always the one trying to teach you, the younger attorney, and me, the stupid law clerk, how stupid we were compared to his brilliance, which was usually fun. And we would run into all sorts of characters, and we'd do all sorts of fun cases, and there were a bunch of stories we could talk about for hours. But there came a point in time where one day we got this case kind of dropped into our lap. And I'd mentioned earlier one of the most famous cases in American jurisprudence, the matter of Paula Jones versus William Jefferson Clinton, who was at that time, I'm fast forwarding, I'm now in my last year of law school, at that time was the sitting president of the United States. And so, Joe, I'm going to let you lead off with your version of the truth on how we got this, and then I'll come around and tell you exactly what happened, or the stuff that's more entertaining at a cocktail party to tell it this way. Now, remember, personal pronouns used by Joe Cammarata, when it says I, me, it should be we, and Bill. Okay? So go ahead. How did we get that case, Joe?
Bill became, not only did he start from law clerk, he was then the lead attorney on the case, even though he was still a law clerk, if you listen to Bill tell the story. But
it's better that way.
Oh, it's much better.
For me.
It depends on who you're telling the story to. Sure. But look, what happened was I had an office in Washington, D.C., and I had an office in Gil's suite of offices. And I use the term suite very loosely as to I had an office in this office park in Fairfax, Virginia. Anyway, we get a fax at the time of faxes. We get a fax, and it was a draft of a complaint. And Gil brought it in. He says, take a look at this. Somebody is bringing a lawsuit against the President of the United States, and there's a couple of people interested, and they want to know if we're interested, if we want to take on this case.
Now remember,
So
we are a law firm of me. Oh, yeah. And I think
Is
Joe's
that
there.
me? Is that
right
me?
now,
Us?
right now, he's telling his story, and you're a law clerk.
Yeah,
Right.
Yes.
I'm a law
you,
clerk.
you don't
He's
even
a
have
law
access.
clerk.
I'm in law school, my
You don't
final
even
year.
have access to the fax machine.
No, I was
no.
the guy. No, my job was it was thermal faxes. Remember the ones that curled up? So when it would start spitting out, and he went so far as to get one that cut. So it would cut it. And so I'd be chasing the little curly papers around, and I had to get the book and smash it all down. And we had a copier in there. And again, it's me, Joe, and Gil, and I think
I'm gonna
Edie.
tell our listeners something real quick. I'm going to whisper this so Bill can't hear it. He has a hard time letting other people tell stories.
Oh, really? I mean, if you listen to the Elliot podcast, you know that's not true. I mean, how many times does Elliot go, I thought this was about
Mr.
me?
Cammarata came down to be on our podcast. You asked him to give his
Right, I'm going to run all
play-by-play.
over top of it. Well, but I was the guy in charge of putting the book down, and then we had a copier that Gil had retreaded that could only make 10 copies before it overheated. So I would then burn
This is
my
the me,
hands
me,
trying
me
to make
part.
these things happen. So go ahead, Joe. Go ahead with your trick.
Bill, I got an idea. How about you take a 30-minute break and walk over to the Pocahontas building, see if you got anybody waiting outside to lobby you on anything important, and I'm going to let our guest tell his story.
Fine, whatever. I'll be outside.
The funny thing is, you said that earlier. I thought I was the only one that returned the phone calls to. Well, Bill, I'm on the same list.
Yeah.
The no call list.
Let me tell you how to fix
no
that.
callback list.
Let me tell you how I fixed it.
How'd you fix it?
We generally speaking, talk every night for a varying amount of time. In fact, the other night he called me. We'd already talked for an hour earlier. He called me back, and we were on the phone for just like 2 minutes real quick. And Angie said, "What's wrong with him?" I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Y'all never talk for less than 30 minutes. That was 2. Like, well, we talked earlier. But so earlier, a couple weeks ago, he was busy, but he didn't call me back for 3. I was texting 3 days. So I decided to take it upon myself to publicize our podcast, which is Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator. Our social media handle for our podcast is Sadler Senator, @Sadler Senator. So I put out a press release on social media promoting the podcast. Well, he's over here in the General Assembly, and people start reading it, and they think it means that I'm promoting a Twitter handle called Senator Sadler, and that I've announced that I'm running for Senate. So he's getting bombarded.
Yeah.
So he calls me and he says, "Hermie, what the hell are you doing? I mean, I'm getting raked over the coals over here. They're telling me you're..." I said, "Bill, I've been trying for 3 days to talk to you about this podcast and the social media handles, and that we needed to promote the podcast. So if you decide not to communicate with me, do it at your own risk. Because when I get to 3 days, I'm going to fire something out that's going to cause you a bunch of heartburn."
I don't blame you. So
I
just-
call
I
him
don't blame you.
I've called him every 15 minutes on the hour. Oh, I'm bleep that out. Pardon me. Ever since. See, he only had
Well,
me. I
he
mean,
can't-
I just,
read it.
and you can't leave him a message. And he says it makes
Mailbox
you
is
more.
full.
It makes you more important if your mailbox is full.
Mailbox is full.
So that's his philosophy.
Look, in
He's
that
gone
mailbox-
so far. You have gone so far to tell me. I have suggested is the only way to get a hold of you by standing in the hallway. You mentioned standing in the hallway.
Yeah.
He says, "Yeah, go to the hallway. Wait for
like
me."
a reception line.
Right,
Yeah.
right. They're waiting to see the king.
Yeah.
all right.
All right,
So,
go ahead with your story. sir.
I can't even remember.
so how did we get the Paula Jones
we're-
case? The thermal
we're-
fax comes.
thermal
I
fax, I don't-
flattened it
Now,
out
Bill
for you.
has told me that he was single-handedly, he went out and sought out Paula Jones and did multiple one-on-one interviews with her.
She barely remembers me if at all.
selling this case to you. So that's
Right.
You take it from there.
Right.
Straighten that out.
You're right. Well,
Good luck.
I'm a little on in years more so than Bill, and so my memory may have faded.
Mine has not.
No, right. So, we're going to defer to Bill's recollection of false events. Anyway.
Like Paula Jones looked at y'all's website. If you had a website back in those days,
No.
I don't think
Barely
there
the
were
internet.
websites.
anyway, she looked at some picture somewhere and said that little cute practicing wannabe attorney looks like a Q-tip. I'm gonna call him.
Oh man, nice jab, nice get in. All right, let's get back to this.
So anyway, Bill, Bill. See, Bill and Gil, they all go together. So one is synonymous with the other. Anyway, Gil comes in and says, "Hey, listen, we got this fax in. Some woman's got a claim against Paula Jones, against Bill Clinton, president, and they want to know if we want to be involved. So I say to Gil, based on my experience at the Department of Justice, oh, you got to be kidding me. I mean, really? Who's suing the President of the United States? How do you have a claim against the President of the United States? Because at Justice, we had a lot of claims against the President of the United States that were all bogus, bullshit, and they were thrown out. That's got to be bleeded too?
Yeah, we're going to leave that one in.
All right. So if you can go to dickhead, how come bullshit? I mean, I don't get this.
Dick is a name.
Everybody looked up at me. I said, Dick is a name?
Yeah, Richard.
And you can
I
have...
didn't understand what you were saying anyway, so I wouldn't know.
Sometimes bulls do that. Anyway, okay.
Nice explanation.
Right. Well, there you go. So Gil says, "Hey, look, let's read it, see what it's saying." Well,
And where's Bill while y'all doing it? Is he cleaning the number 2 toilet? Or what is he?
No, I'm dressing my burn wounds from making the copies on the burn-up
Oh, okay.
copier.
I don't remember Bill at that point in time, but soon I'll get to him soon. But
Okay.
at that point, I don't remember.
So he wasn't necessarily in on the ground level.
He wasn't in. Well, and he wasn't in on that conversation.
Okay.
That preliminary conversation.
You ready to kick him off yet, Bill?
Yeah,
No,
you're done.
Wait, I'm getting you.
I was Gil's bag man, for God's sakes.
I'm getting you there. I'm getting you there. Okay.
Sure.
So I read the complaint, and it's a complaint about a young woman who's abused by a governor. And the governor happens to be now the President of the United States. So I said, oh, this relates to conduct when he was governor. Doesn't relate to conduct when he's president. So maybe there's something there. Let's take a look at it. So now, that's when I call in Bill. I said, Bill, get away from if you finish with the bathrooms, finish with the fax paper. All right, can you help me out
Put
here?
the plunger in toilet number 2. Bill, put that down and come in the office a moment.
Can you come on in? We got some legal research to do. And he said, what? I said, legal research. He still said, what?
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 I'm not sure he was
What are you
asking.
talking about, dickhead?
I'm not sure if he was talking about what did he mean by legal research or what legal research. But nevertheless, we told him what.
I'm still a third-year, law student.
oh no!
Legal
I thought
research.
you ran the place.
Well, yeah, but doing work for you was not something I used to do. I used to do it for Gil. I said, I'm going to have to check with Gil, get permission.
So anyway, I say to Bill, look, we got this complaint. Let's take a look at it. I seem to recall that there's a case that a sitting president can't be sued. I think it was called Nixon against Fitzgerald was my recollection of the case. Bill, do some research. Let's see what we got. Maybe there can be a valid claim that's not prevented under the law against a sitting president in these circumstances. So then I left it alone to Bill, okay, for a couple of weeks. So you want to pick up the story from there?
No,
Wait
I
a
mean,
minute. Well, before you start, I'm sorry I'm messing up y'all's story.
no, you're fine.
Can we get possibly Paula Jones to call in and verify the happenings of this?
She'll agree with Joe's side of the story. So no, we don't need that kind of
So
confirmation.
I'll call her and say, Joe Cammarata and Bill Stanley were on my podcast. Da, da, da. She said, oh, Joe, tell Joe, how's he doing? Hadn't seen him in a while. And who's Bill?
Well, I'll just say the dude that carried all the boxes and bags, the guy that walked 2 steps behind him because they made me so I wasn't in their shot when they were getting filmed by CNN.
I know, we tried to keep the shot tight, in the press shot. But no, Paula would remember him.
I got a picture of her at your house when we had dinner.
Yeah.
She was wonderful too, and we're getting ahead of the story. But so I did the research. It showed that when it came to professional or acts as a president, one was immune, that there was an immunity from civil liabilities. But it didn't answer the question of whether a president could be sued for his private actions when he wasn't president. And so I gave it to Joe to do that analysis, and you came up with the belief that you could be sued. A president is not a king. That you could be sued for your private acts.
Yeah, you could be sued for personal private conduct, even if you're a president. But this happened before he was president, and can the lawsuit go forward? The Nixon against Fitzgerald prevented lawsuits questioning the official conduct of the president. So that's not Paula's case. And for those that don't know, Paula was a woman that worked for the state of Arkansas government. And she was at a registration desk that her state agency was
at the Excelsior Hotel.
At the Excelsior Hotel.
See, I remember.
That's right. Anybody could look that up. Anyway, so at the Excelsior Hotel, And she was a security guard of the then Governor Clinton, came over, said, hey, look, Governor would like to meet you.
He's a trooper.
State trooper, Danny Ferguson. Governor would like to meet you. Here's a room number. Go on up. So Paula looks to her friend who's sitting with her at the registration desk. I think it was Pamela Blackard at the time.
Yes.
Hey, look, geez, do you think I should go up there? It's quite an honor. The governor wants me to go up. And so Pam says, sure, go up. Why not? What's the big deal? We're in a hotel, big Excelsior Hotel. It's a convention. So the trooper escorts.
Well, then don't forget, the thing that the trooper said later was that President Clinton went to him, leaned into him and said, you see that girl with the big hair? She makes my knees weak. Bring her up. And what he was doing was he had a habit of getting himself like a hospitality suite or a suite where he then would try to lure people up there, allegedly.
And you know, when Paula was questioning the trooper, Danny, as to whether or not she should go up, one chilling line is that the trooper told Paula was, don't worry about it. We do this all the time. Well, you know, we now know what that means.
Right.
We do this all the time. But so anyway, Paula goes up there. Just the two of them are in the hotel room. Paula is confronted by Clinton. He leans in, tries to kiss her. He runs his hand up her leg. At some point, he exposes himself and asks Paula Jones to kiss it.
Kiss it.
Right. She says, I'm not that kind of woman. And she leaves the Excelsior Hotel, leaves the room, goes back down to Pam and
Very upset.
And very upset and tells Pam, you know.
Your Clinton is pretty good.
No, he's good.
Thank you very much. I used to call him up and swear at him when during the case. I go, hey, Joe Cammarata, you're a dickhead.
So anyway, that's Paula's case. And so there was a local lawyer that she had, a fellow by the name of Danny Traylor, lawyer by the name of Danny Traylor. And it was his complaint that was sent over by fax for us to review. Now, after our review, we recognized that there were a lot of holes in that complaint. And that complaint would likely not withstand judicial scrutiny.
In federal court,
thrown
especially.
out in federal court virtually immediately. The way it was written, the way it was pled, the things that they were claiming were the harms.
But before you continue, was this really boiled down to he said versus she said? Because there were only two there? Is that...
Well, we took it out of that, and I'll get to that in a minute as to how it wasn't he said, she said. Mm-hmm. At that point, it was he said, she said. But anyway, so the long and the short of it is this. I got Danny Traylor on the telephone. I had to use a payphone. There were no cell phones at the time. I got him on a payphone. It had been 2 weeks since he sent us the complaint. And he says, hey, Joe, you know, with an Arkansas accent that I can't do. Good to hear from you, but I'm filing this tomorrow. I got a press conference tomorrow. I said, what do you mean? Well, I didn't hear from you. I got to file this thing. So I said to him, well, Danny, if you file it, I don't think it's going to survive a motion to dismiss. You got this problem, this problem, this problem, this problem. He says, well, you know, I still have this press conference. What am I supposed to tell the press? I said, well, are you feeling a little sick right now? He says, yeah. I said, well, tell him you're feeling sick. We'll be right there. So I called Bill, not Gil. I called Bill, and I said, Bill, get Gil. We got to get together. We got to come to the office tonight, and we got to redraft this complaint because next morning we got to fly to Little Rock and meet Paula Jones and do our due diligence.
And that's what happened. And actually, though, it was a couple days back. Gil, after you gave the spiel on Nixon versus Fitzgerald, why this could be a case, looking at that stuff, you'd stop Danny Traylor from really kind of jumping out too fast, too far. Gil looks at us and goes, I think we're going to the Supreme Court on this one, boys. And he walks out, and we're like, what are you doing? We got to work. He says, I'm going to the New Orleans Jazz Festival. I'll be back in 2 days. And what I remember is that Joe and I look at each other, and I think we used some very coarse language. Like, what are we going to do? Usually it was always like we were left holding the bag and, okay. Well, so we stayed up for 2 days, if you recall.
I do recall.
And we went across the street to the 7-Eleven. We're in Fairfax City. Of course, this case is in Arkansas. And Michael Isikoff had done an article, did he not?
He did.
And
investigative reporter for the Washington Post.
And because we had only a certain amount of facts, what Danny Traylor had told you, and I don't know if we'd even talked to Paula yet.
No. Hadn't spoken to Paula. We had the outline of the complaint that barely, had a bare bones set of facts. Mm-hmm. So we went to we knew that Isikoff was on the story,
writing for the Post at that time,
and was set to write an expansive piece. So we
waited until the Washington Post truck came out in front of the 7-Eleven, ran over there and got the first copy.
That's
at
right.
2 a.m? We stayed up straight for a couple of days. Now remember, the case itself, not only what was done to her, she was willing to let it go. It's when it showed up in the National Spectator that and Troopergate was the story. And
the American Spectator.
Yeah, and American Spectator. And it made her look like she was compliant, and that's what upset her.
Right.
And so we then used that Washington Post article to fill in some of the blanks. And I had to go ask my mother, I'm getting ready to take my last law school exams for my last year. And I said, I can't miss this piece of history. And so Joe wouldn't loan me any money. I was broke, living at home. And so my mom loaned me the money to get the plane ticket to go to Little Rock with you and Gil. And I went to my law school, and I said, look, and I went to the District of Columbia School of Law, which is very liberal. And I said, look, told all my professors I had like 3 exams. I'm going to have to drop out. This is what's going on. I've got to go be a part of this, or I'll regret it for the rest of my life. And they looked at me, all of them, and said, well, look, here's the exam. Just take it and fax it back. Do it while you're down there. And so I was freed. I wasn't going to have to go back to law school for another semester. And that's how we geared up to get to Little Rock. And so at that point in time, we're still drafting the complaint. Gil comes back. And instead of coming into the office, he wanted us to come out to his place where he was having a pizza party and review the case. Joe blew his stack. Ever remember that? Now, am I right so far?
You're right so far.
What are you talking about, pizza party? We got work to do. Stuff like that. Dickhead. Yeah, right. It's like the word of the day.
I usually don't say dickhead. That was never my parlance.
Let me get another. While we digest that, another mention in Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator is powered by Pace-O-Matic. Pace-O-Matic is an entertainment company which develops gaming software that players love to play and can use their skills to win every single time. Pace-O-Matic is also focused on people having fun, the small businesses that love them, and generates millions of dollars in Virginia. Bill, did I mention that during the tax and regulation period with these skill games, under ABC, we generated about $140 million of revenue.
You probably said that, but I was downstairs because you made me leave. But yes, indeed.
They could be used for lots of good purposes.
You're right. You're exactly
in
right.
the budget.
There's still time.
Do you know any senators that I could talk to about?
I know 39 of them. I can show you where to go, but
Any
I'm not going with you.
Well,
yeah, they are all great listeners.
On a serious note, we do thank Pace-O-Matic for sponsoring the podcast and giving us this platform to have discussions like we're having today with y'all's ongoing bill introduction and moving things through the General Assembly to help a lot of people in need, and also this finally a truthful recollection of the Paula Jones case.
Time to tell you about something I'm super passionate about: protecting your family. Yes, this is a life insurance ad for GoliathLife.com, but to me, this is really about peace of mind. Think about insurance for a second. We all get medical and auto insurance, yet we never even know if we're going to have a need for it. Let me let you in on a little secret. You need life insurance. We're all going to die. Now, as you let that reality sink in, think about what would happen if your family stopped having your income tomorrow. If you don't have a plan for that, you need to visit GoliathLife.com. And I mean right now. And just personally, I've lost 2 friends in their 40s this past year and a half, and I don't even want to think about what their families would be going through had they not had life insurance. If you don't have it, get it. Protect your family. And I suggest you go to GoliathLife.com because they've made the process of getting affordable life insurance super easy. Goliath Life streamlines the life insurance process by allowing you to get quotes from more than 20 carriers within minutes. And you'll pick your terms and payments to fit your budget. You pick your price, you start the online application immediately, and even schedule the medical exam to come to you. And I've done it. They sent someone to my office. I skipped the phone calls, the paperwork, and the crazy invasive conversations. Goliath Life makes buying life insurance simple. There's no hidden fees, no upsells, no hassle, hell, not even a phone call. Goliath Life is life insurance in your hands on your time. Get multiple quick quotes right now from the comfort of your own home and begin your application in a few easy clicks right now at GoliathLife.com.
Now, there are a couple sources that our listeners can refer to in what we did, and we're trying to give you the inside stuff because it really is. It's one thing in a book or in a mini series. It's another thing what our truth or my truth and your version of the truth is. But if you go to there's a book by Jeffrey Toobin that was written around the time 98. This is 1994. What we're talking about.
Wait, Jeffrey Toobin.
Was he the guy that was? Oh no. Yeah. Well, this was before he got on a Zoom call when he
Before Zoom. Yeah.
When he should have zoomed right instead of zooming left. So it was called A Vast Conspiracy, which I thought was a pretty good detailing of our whole experience in representing Paula Jones. But more importantly for our listeners, just recently on FX, and probably you can find it on Netflix or on the internet, there was a mini series called Crime Story Impeachment. And in that, which of course details at least part of our involvement. Why we're telling this story is too because Hollywood does certain things, but so they said that these guys that we were in some big beautiful law firm, right? We weren't. We were in a small little second floor condo. It had a better looking Joe Cammarata, which he was not that good looking, nor was he that tall. And then they kind of left me out. I don't know why. Obviously, if you roll to the credits, you see, consultant Joseph B. Cammarata. And now I know why I'm not in it. But it made it look like we were fancy lawyers doing fancy things.
Was it happening to be because you weren't relevant enough?
Let's not.
It's
his
relevant in my own
podcast.
mind.
I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that was the case.
But truth is sometimes stranger than fiction, and that certainly is the case here. While they got some of that right, what then we were about to tell you is we got on a flight, an American Airlines flight, 721. By the way, see how my memory is. I still have the ticket. And we jetted off to Arkansas. And talk about that. I mean, we fly in Arkansas. We're fish out of water. Do you remember what hotel we stayed at?
No.
Holiday Inn.
I don't.
Right in
I don't
Midtown.
remember American Airlines flight number, where we stayed.
Do you remember when we were flying back that lightning hit the plane? See,
No.
you remember
Y'all
when
talking
the
about two
Washington
completely
Post...
different
I mean,
stories.
Do you know?
I'm
remember
not
when
sure
the,
I was in the same
Do
plane.
you remember when the Washington Post identified me as a spokeswoman and Gil got a big laugh reading the paper as we were flying back?
Well, I don't know where we were, but I do remember that.
That was on the airplane, I
Yes,
swear.
okay.
Because
Yeah.
he was mad at me. But we'll
well,
get
I
into
don't
that.
blame him.
All right, so we fly down there. We meet our client for the first time. Pick it up from there, Joe.
All right. What
That's
we
untrue.
wanted to
Let me tell you, that's untrue. Let me tell you no, go ahead.
What we wanted to do is meet the potential client and do due diligence. Are there facts to support the claims that we were making or about to make?
And you were a big skeptic. You were.
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, you're a huge skeptic.
I my bias was against such a claim. What type of interaction do you have at that level? And so I really had to be convinced by talking to the potential client, by talking to witnesses that yes, they weren't in the room, but they were contemporaneously told of problems that she had with the governor at the time. So we did do that. We met Paula. We met Paula's mother.
This is the 4th of May, 1994.
4th of May, 1994. Yeah, there was what the concern was. There's a period of time within which, after someone is harmed, that you have to file a lawsuit. That period of time is called a statute of limitations. If that period passes, well then any claim you might have is extinguished, is barred, it's prevented from going forward. The person you sue will say it's too late. And so we were running up against the statute of limitations. I think the statute of limitations, whether this event in the Excelsior Hotel happened on May 6th, and so we were right up on the statute of limitations.
Last 2 days, 48 hours to go.
Right.
And how many years after? I mean,
Three. In this particular circuit, it was 3.
Okay.
So
So it
3
was
years, so it was 92 when, 91.
91.
Okay.
Yeah, this is 94. So
Yeah, Bill. 4
Yeah.
minus 3.
he's not on the finance committee.
Not a math
That's
guy.
for
I'm not a
sure.
math guy.
He's not on the finance committee. Thank God. So when you're talking to him about the $140 million, I think you better get a finance guy.
Yeah.
I mean, you're right.
Well, Janet would never allow me on that committee. She's smart. She's smart like that.
So anyways, 3-year statute of limitation, got 2 days to go. So we fly into Danny Trailer's offices, and we meet Paula, her mother, and 2 witnesses,
Pamela.
Deborah Ballantyne and Pamela Blacker. Pamela Blacker was the woman, young lady who was at the registration desk. All right. So we do what we need to do. We talk and we determine what the facts are, and they're adding up to basically what we've read and understood.
And if I remember, you were the one when you listened to the witnesses. That's when you turned around and said, "This really happened.
Yeah. Well,
This really happened."
yeah, I did.
And Paula was so natural and naive and truthful. I mean, she was just, and part of even what we said in the lawsuit was, let's keep Paula because she was just so truthful. And
How old was she?
That was her scariest point. I mean, that's where she had the most leverage.
Any idea?
20s?
Late 20s,
Okay.
maybe. Yes, she was just so naive, so innocent.
And she had a soft accent like mine. Did it help?
Oh, yeah. She had really, yeah.
And-
She was
and-
sweet.
and
very,
so-
very nice, wonderful lady.
One thing that I remembered was from the Michael Jackson case, when Michael Jackson was accused of molesting a young boy. The young boy said, "No, well, it's just not my word against his word because I could tell you about his genital area." So I cleared the room, and I cleared the room,
True. Now he's
and
talking truth.
I sat in the room with Paula Jones, just me and her, and I determined
Just your phone's ringing. Do a Bill Stanley on them and hit decline.
I can show you how to do it. It's really easy.
he's good. I mean,
really
yeah,
easy.
there's a decline. Yes, I'm
I've got
surprised.
This new 3-day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I want.
I
I'm
got
gonna.
him. I got him. I sent him something the other night on email, a video that I made. That once I get 3 days and 5 seconds,
I'm releasing.
I'm putting it out.
In 15 minutes, he had an answer. And that answer was no.
Oh
So
my
go
God!
ahead. I'm
Yeah,
sorry. This is
I'm
how this
glad it's
podcast
not.
runs.
I'm glad it's just not only me. I'm glad this is like a survivors club.
It's
you
a
know,
fraternity.
You know, it's a fraternity.
Look,
right.
my mom would complain about the same thing. Okay, so anyway, I mean,
Anyway,
you
so
went in there.
I get her in the conference room, and I say to her, "Paula, was there anything about Clinton's genital area that was unusual to you?"
You didn't ask her that.
Yes,
I
he
did.
did.
And she said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, what is it? What was it?" And she told me. And I said, "Well, can you describe the genital area for me?" "Yeah, it was very thin," she said, "about the size of a quarter in diameter." And so I said, "Well,
Well, she
Paula,
don't even know what thin is. We have to bleep that out too.
Yeah. That's a later podcast. yeah. So, and she gave
So-
you a great, I mean, an incredibly
she had a
specific
dis-
description.
So I said to
Now,
her,
this is not a joke. You really had this conversation.
"This is not a joke.
Wow.
This is not
This
a joke."
turned into an affidavit later that I
So
typed.
I said to her, "Well, can you draw it?" She said,
No
"Yes."
way.
Yeah.
Yes. I said,
Yeah.
"Here's a piece of paper. Draw it for me." So she drew it. I said, "Can you sign it and date it?" She signed it and dated it. I took it and I left. I said, "Okay, thank you very much." And so I added a line in the complaint that said there were distinguishing characteristics in Clinton's genital area that were obvious to Jones. That's the line.
and
verbatim.
that was the TNT.
And so when we filed the complaint, and we're skipping a bit.
Yeah.
When we filed the complaint, I let the press know, look at paragraph, making it up now, 163. Read that.
Yeah.
Because then it was no longer he said, she said. Because now
It was he said, she saw.
she saw. Right.
And she drew.
And she drew.
So we work up this complaint. I'm typing. We had a pool who was the pool secretary who worked with us all night. We didn't sleep. Was it the first day or the second day when we get a call from Bill Clinton's attorney?
Well, it was the first day.
First day.
See, but on the first day, the only person that was known to be Paula's attorney was Danny Traylor. We were in his office. So Bob Bennett, just a giant in the legal community at Skadden Arps.
His brother was Bill Bennett, who was Secretary of Education under Bush. Bush
I think
one.
so, yeah. Just two wonderful gentlemen, maybe opposite sides of the political spectrum, what have you. But Bob Bennett was just a fine lawyer. Skadden Arps, huge law firm. Okay,
Against these little guys.
and it's just the three of us. Okay,
He
against
included
this
me. Look at that.
mega law firm.
Yeah.
And so Bob has been calling over to Danny Traylor. Danny says, "Hey, Bob Bennett keeps calling me." So Gil says, "I know him from way back when I was working in the U.S. Attorney's office. I'll call him."
They worked together in the U.S. Attorney's Office.
And so Gil then eventually had a conversation with Bennett in an attempt to try to see if we could resolve the case. There was no discussion of money at all. It was a discussion of getting some type of a recognition that Paula did nothing wrong, and that she was a good person, and that was that.
The first line of that. So these two guys, and this is a great story too, because we're in Danny Traylor's office. They're having this discussion, and I think Bob Bennett was really shocked that we weren't asking for any money. That all Paula Jones wanted is her reputation back, which is really, for us, that's great. But as lawyers, and how am I going to pay my mom back for the airplane? That was her integrity. All she wanted was an apology. So they then craft what is an apology, which led with this statement. Although I do not remember meeting Miss Jones, I do not question her account.
Yeah, I haven't read it in a long time.
And then it says basically, but nothing bad happened.
I'm not. You don't object to, or don't.
But nothing bad
contest.
happened.
I'm not a lawyer, and much like Bill, I wasn't there. But
Wait, I just
I'm
caught that.
hoping y'all didn't go for that line.
Oh yeah. Well, in fact, they work out the language, and this is a story I remember. Let's see if you remember. We're standing in Danny Traylor's office, and actually, back in the day, you did have speakerphone, believe it or not. And we're on speakerphone, and what I remember was we kept hearing this coughing in the background, like. And Gil Davis says, "Well, look, Bob. I mean, unless your client agrees to this." We're just, spinning wheels here. We need to know that he's going to be able, and what he would do is he would walk out into the press room, read the statement, not take questions, and then not address the suit. Otherwise, we would have a tolling limitation where we could bring the lawsuit back if that happened. And Gil's like, it doesn't matter if your client hasn't read it. And he goes, no, he's read it. He's like, well, can I be sure? And he's like, because I'm in his office. I'm with him. And all of us were standing around in a kind of semicircle, and we all went, for a second, we're like, we're on the phone with the White House. This is awesome. I mean, we were almost like kind of a little giddy. Starstruck.
My memory's a little different, but it is the point.
Bill was out getting tacos.
Bill was
going home by then.
Run to the store to get Clorox wipes.
Bill, he does such a good job with the fax machine, so we had him set up working Danny's fax machine.
Yeah.
Right, so that's where Bill was. No, we were in the room on the phone, and we had worked on language, and the question was who was going to read it. So Bob Bennett said that a press person will read it. I said, no, we want the president to read it. So Bennett says, 1 minute, hang on, I'm with the president. He puts us on hold. He gets back on the phone and he says, the president says he will read it. At that point, we look at each other and say, my God, we're negotiating directly with the president of the United States. This is pretty heady stuff.
Yeah. He might be close on that recollection, but still,
Yeah,
I like
I mean,
mine better. So then,
You're not gonna let him finish.
it's like Elliot Sadler for you. So then, I'm leading him here.
Leading.
So then,
Objection.
So then, Paula Jones agrees to the statement being read. No money exchanging hands. The president gives his preliminary agreement. We're 1 day away from the filing deadline. We filed on the 6th. What happens next? This is the greatest part of the story. This shows and proves that I was there. Go ahead. Tell him what you think.
All right. we're gonna put it in context. I told you earlier that there's a deadline that you have to file within which to file. Statute of limitations deadline. Parties, both sides can agree if they're negotiating or they want to try to work it out to extend that deadline, to let it toll, T-O-L-L. And so we said we want to have an agreement to keep the statute open, to toll the statute of limitations. Bob Bennett said, no, that's a deal breaker. We're not going to give you that under any circumstances. You have to agree to it right now or not by the deadline. So Bob Bennett said, you owe it to the president not to file the lawsuit today. Wait 1 day. Just wait. Give us the benefit of the doubt. Let us try to work this out. So Danny Trailer's office overlooked a courtyard. And in that courtyard was a multitude of press that were there when we got there and were still there day in, day out.
It was right in front of the federal courthouse, which was that one block down in that courtyard.
Right. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So the press had been calling. In addition, I told you Bob Bennett was calling, but the press were hounding Danny Trailer. When are you going to file? 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 So we needed to answer these calls. So I wrote on a piece of paper, a little scrap of paper that I think Bill still has.
I still have it, yes.
That we are not filing today.
For reasons we are not at liberty to disclose at this time, we will not be filing the Paula Jones lawsuit against William Jefferson Clinton.
I don't think it was that.
Yes,
I have it.
I've memorized.
It wasn't that. I had one line.
We intend to file the lawsuit tomorrow. And you struck out.
No. We will file a lawsuit tomorrow. I crossed through it because I was writing it out. We may file it tomorrow. All right. So now I say to Bill, I know you've been just working on the faxes.
And
the toilets. This is a big day for you. We want you to go down to the press. What was I thinking? Okay, I had to be crazy.
Q-tip on the big stage.
Oh, dude,
I had to be crazy. Okay, I said, Bill, take this slip of paper. I give him the paper. Go down and read only this piece of this statement. Do not say anything else.
No, you didn't.
Do not say a word.
Look, you said just stick to this piece of paper.
Right, so what does that mean?
But before we got there, we're like, all right, Danny, you want to go down there? And Danny's like, I don't want to go down there. I mean, throngs of people. In fact, when you look down there, there was that McDougal dude in the Whitewater. He was there in a big white hat and his white suit, looked like the colonel. There's a guy in a chicken suit, I swear, down there who was saying Clinton was chicken. And they're looking down, they're like, I'm not going to do it, you do it. I'm not going to do it. And it was like, Mikey, let's get Mikey, he'll do it. So they turn and go, Bill, go read this. And he rips it off the piece of paper.
There was no chance Gil or I were going to read it. The reason is we didn't want our identity disclosed until we filed a lawsuit. Mm-hmm. That was our motivation. So he was expendable.
He was expendable.
He could take the hit. Yeah. So right. And so but they wouldn't have to know who he was tied up with. Right?
That was not explained to me in the way that it should have been, I guess.
I can get a sense of where this is headed.
Yeah. So he gives me the piece of paper. I'm like, okay. And I'm in a suit. I'm in a suit. And I walk down there. And it's strong. It's hot. It's a hot day in May. they turn and they look, and there's this one guy with a little strand of paper. I mean, he ripped it off the yellow pad. So it's like, and I have it in a scrapbook, and it's about 1.5 inches thick. And it's your handwriting in blue pen, because you love that blue pen. And I'm walking down there, and they look like hungry bears. Like, here comes a chicken. And except not the guy in the chicken suit. And they rush toward me, and they go, "Are you with the case? Are you with the case?" And I went, "Uh-huh." And they rush towards me, and they envelop me, and they push me to this bank of microphones. I mean, pushing me to this bank of microphones. Yeah, what are you doing? And I said, "For reasons we're not at liberty to disclose, we're not be finding the Paula Jones case." And they're like, "Say it again. You're not being loud enough." I said, "For reasons." And they say it again. And then, all right. And then all of a sudden, this white van comes up, pulls the door open, goes, "CNN, we're going live. Make a hole." And these reporters kind of part. And there's a guy with a camera in a white van. Now, I've always was taught the creepy white vans are not good things. So I thought it was
it's a bad day.
For a second,
Right.
I thought, I'm dead. I'm never going to clean another toilet. This is going to be awful. And so I read it again.
The
And
only
they said,
experience I had with a white van was in Brooklyn, Halloween. We were standing on a street corner, a bunch of guys, okay? And a white van pulls up. The back doors open up. I thought we were going to get killed or something. You know, who knows what was going on. Well, they had a crate of eggs. I mean, eggs, more eggs than I've ever seen, stacked up. And they started pelting us with eggs. That was the white van story.
Well, okay.
But go ahead.
See how he wanders? You need to believe that my recollection is true, because this is like, we got to take him back to the Villages by 5:30 so he can ride his golf cart to dinner and get the blue plate special. So they say this.
There's some things I remember
this
and
is
are emblazoned on my mind. But go ahead. I'll tell the truth after you're done.
So this is where it went sideways a little bit. But I was enjoying the heck out of it. So they're up looking down at me. They got the crowd around me. The guy in the chicken suit's there. McDougal's there with the big hat.
Get back to what happens when Wolf Blitzer shows up.
It was not Wolf Blitzer. I would have stopped and gone, "Hey, Wolf, can I get your autograph?" So I read the thing again and again, because some people are, they're running with cameras, so you have to read it again. They said, "Are you the attorney?" I said, "No, I'm not an attorney yet." "Who are you?" "I'm Bill Stanley." "Why aren't you an attorney?" I go to law school. I'm a lawyer, third year law student." "What law school?" "District of Columbia School of Law." "Who do you work for?" "I work for Gilbert K. Davis and Joseph P. Cammarata. Here's their address. Here's their phone number, basically." "Who are they?" They're Paula Jones attorneys. And they asked me all questions under the sun. 25 minutes later, it felt like. I think it was probably about 20 minutes.
So you went in business for yourself down there.
I was big time. I was big time.
We're watching 25. He says 25. I think it was 45.
You decided to go in business for yourself.
They asked me all sorts of questions.
From upstairs. I said, "Where's Bill?"
They asked me all sorts of questions.
Gave us a line to read. We're watching from. I'm saying, "Oh my God!"
And Bill's down there.
Yeah. See that little blip up there? That's them. So I walk back up.
Let's everybody wave. They're looking at the window.
I can remember opening the door, and Joe's got this look on his face. "And what the hell were you talking about?" I'm like, they asked me questions. "What did you say?" I told him I went to law school. My name. "You gave him your name?" "Yeah." You didn't say my name." "Oh, yeah. I told him Joseph P. Cammarata and Gil Davis." And he's like, "I'm cooked. I'm done. Oh, I can't believe it. I can't believe I gave you that to do. The one thing I give you to do, you mess it up." and so that was the day, and that was the end of our thing. We thought we had the case settled. That night, do you remember, Joe? We all went to a Mexican restaurant with Paula and her husband. Do you recall that?
I do remember that.
And we couldn't find a seat. It was downtown Little Rock. And we were sitting kind of near the bar. Well, no, actually, Gil Davis wanted to sit near the bar because he wanted to see the TV coverage. If you recall that?
I don't recall that.
Okay, see, now this is my favorite part of the story. This is where this whole thing turned into a lawsuit. We're sitting there. We think we got the case settled. We're eating.
Well, I remember why it turned into a lawsuit, but I don't remember Gil sitting by the TV.
Oh, no, Gil wanted to sit near the TV so he could see. And they had CNN on, Crossfire at the time, and they had the Ragin' Cajun on there. So we're sitting there with Paula.
James Carville.
And she was married to a guy named Steve at the time. Steve's profession, or one of his professions, was he was an Elvis impersonator. And so not only was he an Elvis impersonator, he talked like Elvis, even when he was normally like, that's not right. Remember that? That is true. That's why you're laughing. So I'm going, okay, I'm going to have to pay my mom back like $700. I don't know. I'm going to do that. I'm going to have the fajitas. And so the lady comes to
Got your
order.
name on CNN.
Yeah,
Right.
well, no, they didn't even show that. So they showed it during the broadcast, but the Crossfire's on. And I'm sitting there across the way, and Steve orders. He says, "I'd like to have the chimichanga special, please." And so I start going, chimichanga special, and I'm trying to get him to laugh, and he's all wound up because Joe Cammarata's wound up so damn tight. And he's like, chimichangas, and so I was going, "I'll have the double taco Diablo," and right then and there, after we'd made about 10 minutes into our order, the Raging Cajun is on there with the guy with the white hair, and he said something to the effect of, when they brought up the Paula Jones case, is the president worried, blah, blah, blah. And part of it was trying to assure her that they weren't going to disparage her character if they read the statement. And it's the most famous line in that case, at least the beginning of that case, before tabloid trash with a legal caption. He says, I talked to her sister or something, and this is what you get when you drag a $100 bill through a trailer park. Isn't that about what he said?
Yeah.
And Paula, being Paula, looks at Steve and says, Steve, I told you they wouldn't. I told you they're going to talk badly about me. Get up. We're leaving. We're not settling this case. And we were kind of anticipating we weren't going to have to stay up all night and write this complaint, finish it up, and get ready. And I'll never forget, and I swear this is the truth, and then I'm trying not to laugh because I know we've got a lot of work to do. Steve goes, ma'am, can I have my chimichanga to go? And I thought that was hilarious. And Joe shoots me a look like, what the hell are you doing again? I'm like, and he said, I'll take my chimichanga to go, just like Elvis. And they left, and we got up, and we started working. And worked all night until we filed a lawsuit the next day.
We did work.
Now, I'm pretty much out of the story because all I did was carry boxes for the next day. So go ahead.
I remember that we did finally find a place to eat. Because
Why did they? So y'all decided not to settle because Paula was mad at a comment they had made on TV.
No, here's I it's stated a little differently. Is the
Okay, Grandpa.
Enough.
Okay, let's go, Grandpa.
is that we eventually found a place to eat, and I don't know that I don't know if it came before or after this event, but we were in Danny Trailer's office, and we told Paula Jones they wouldn't agree to extend the time for you to file. You have to make a decision. We became aware of press reports at that time where the press said, unnamed White House sources say, the reason Paula didn't file was because she was afraid, her families were against her, she didn't have a case, all of that type of thing. The fears that we had that the president would read the statement and then turn around through press people and undo what the president said were just brought to reality. If we didn't have a time period within which to file a lawsuit after the statement was read, because we wanted to prevent the situation just like that from happening. We can sue him if he didn't live up to to keep quiet. At that point, we realized we had just two alternatives. One, accept their language, or two, file a lawsuit. Paula Jones, I can remember vividly, was on the floor on a corner crying because she didn't want to file a lawsuit. She just wanted her good name and reputation back. That was all it.
That was before the Mexican restaurant. That's true.
Okay. So we asked her, what do you want to do? It's totally up to you. And then she finally came around and said, okay, we'll file a lawsuit. So at that point, there was no further talking to Bob Bennett. Gil penned in handwriting, a letter to Bob Bennett. In effect said that we have wanted a tolling agreement. You have said it's a non-starter, a no deal breaker. And so what we have to do is to protect her, and we will be filing the lawsuit. And so that's what he did. and he sent that to in some way. He got it, I guess, faxed to Bob Bennett, and then we wound up finalizing a complaint, having it printed. Hundreds, a lot of copies, and
Yeah, I carried those.
Yeah,
In a box.
you did a good job.
Handed them out. That was
He
my
came
job.
out and said, "Don't you remember me? I'm the guy that was here yesterday."
And you should never. I mean, these two guys then became glory hounds, trying to like jockey for position in front of the cameras. Like Gil was insisting. Well, at first he was to your right, and there's like because then it would say Joseph Cammarata and Gil Davis, and so then he used to always insist afterwards that I have to be on your left. You can't. And then Joe, of course, Gil is a wonderful, articulate speaker. He gave the best closing arguments ever.
Very
he would-
insightful.
yeah, and dramatic and wonderful. I learned so much from that. But then he would go into an in-depth, wonderful dissertation on the law. And Joe stands up and goes, "This is the raping of Paula Jones." And that makes the paper and nothing else that Gil said. And so this started kind of a natural fun tension about how even you were trying not to be in the lead, but somehow they always kept picking up your little quippy sayings, and Gil's 4-minute dissertation never made, which taught me how to speak in 10 to 15-second sound bites, both in court cases and here.
That was the thing, and you're masterful at it. Actually, I listened to your orations here in the Senate, absolutely spectacular in terms of capturing the essence without. Holy cow!
I got that from Gil, not you. That's
no,
for
I didn't
sure.
say you got it from me. but wherever you got it, I'm glad you got it because you do a great job.
Did y'all file this in the Supreme Court?
We
or-
filed it in the U.S. District Court, federal court in Arkansas.
Okay.
Let's fast forward. I mean, so we're up against the president, and let me tell you something. Anytime we filed something, and we're back at our little office, let's see, we fly back. Our plane got hit by lightning. You don't remember that?
I don't remember that.
See, I remember all that. But still, we fly back. We land. I go back to my law school. There's press outside. My law school's mad at me because I did my stupid crap down there at the press conference because I said I went to the
I'm
DC
glad
School
we're
of Law.
not the only ones.
They were trying to be a post-secondary school for the District of Columbia, who Clinton had promised would become a state, and so that's how they bought what was Antioch, turned it into DC School of Law. That long story short. So they're all mad at me. I'd finished my exams and faxed them back. I was wondering if I was going to get kicked out or graduated, but the William Robinson, the president at the time, made sure that I graduated. He was very kind. A lot of turmoil, a lot of things, but every time we did something, our fax machine would go ring off the hook, and here would come 20 pages. If you filed a 2-page motion, they would have a response within 15 seconds. They were trying to out-chess match us and play us all the time. They were filing motions. They just figured since we were small, they knew we were a small firm, that we couldn't keep up with the big firm, Skadden Arps. We couldn't keep up with the president, and that we would capitulate, which I have to give you and Gil credit for. You never did. You just made me write everything while you guys went on Geraldo and talked about how great you were.
Thank you. But and what's wrong with that?
Nothing. It was MSNBC at the time. There was no other cable program like that.
Two things. Throughout the course of the case, we had met with Bob Bennett at several times to try to work out a settlement. And this one time, we started our meeting at 6 o'clock. It had gone on. It's 11 o'clock. Took a break. I come out in the hallway. There's a receptionist sitting outside. The lights are on. People are scurrying about. And I said to the receptionist, I said, are you here just because we're here? Oh, no. We're here 24 hours a day. So it dawned on me then that, my God, my opponent never sleeps. They're awake all the time. When I'm sleeping, they're working.
Right.
But nevertheless, we gave them their money's worth, and we did. I have to say, a great job. There was they wanted to lay the case as best as they could. They didn't want to have Clinton be deposed, be questioned under oath. And so they filed a motion to dismiss the case. Denied. They took the appeal to the Court of Appeals. Denied. Now they went to the Supreme Court. So they have to ask...
The question was, can he be subjected to the machinations of a lawsuit? Can he be sued and subjected to the process of a civil lawsuit while he's president?
Correct. And so now they're going to ask the Supreme Court to hear the case. Now, I've never been to the Supreme Court. before or since. But the Supreme Court follows certain strict deadlines as to when the petition is filed, when an opposition to the petition, they request to have them hear it, and then as a calendar, and then when they'll make their decision before the term ends in the end of June. Mm-hmm. If you don't make it by then the case gets delayed for at least 6 months. Okay? So the only way that we could make the June deadline was to file our opposition to Clinton's request that the Supreme Court hear it within 1 day. So I said, okay, let's do this. Let's draft an opposition without knowing what they're really going to say. We know we don't know the exact words, but we do know what they've said all along. It's been 2 years. We know what they're about to say. So let's just draft an opposition, and we blind, if you would.
This is 1997.
Right. So
I'm a lawyer by now. I'm writing everything. He's just telling me what to write. I wrote the whole. No, I'm kidding. A little bit of it. Typed it. I know I did that.
So anyway, we put this opposition together. The brief comes in from the president. We now have less than 24 hours to file something. And then, and by the way, you just can't file it. It's got to go to a printer.
A little small.
A printer,
brief.
You got to have in books, typefaced. So we took this thing early in the morning to some printer. We were working with lawyers that had provided us at more times than not with drafts of the briefs that we would file. And Gil and I had a way of reviewing the briefs that we'd sit on opposite ends of across each other and go over line by line and then read it and make any changes that we wanted to the brief. But anyway, so
it's like two women fighting over a menu item in an Italian restaurant. These guys were unbelievable. Some of the debates they had about one word. It's unbelievable.
But we got it done. But anyway, so what happened was we get it to the printer. We get the books back. And so now they have to be you have to serve them, meaning give them to your opponent. So I said, I want to take them to my opponent. I want to hand deliver them because I want to show them, what kind of guys we are.
Cheap.
Not cheap. To turn around a product in 1 day, okay, in order to meet the Supreme Court ultimate deadline and not delay the case for 8 months, 6 to 8 months. So I show up at the lawyer's office, at Skadden Arp's office. Oh, they knew who I was. Who do you want to see? It says attorney so-and-so. All right. I show them, what are you here for? I said, I got the brief. We're filing our opposition to you. They said, today? I said, yeah, today. I couldn't believe it. So that just, we could, when the chips were down, do what we needed to do. Yeah. And we were on the right side, and we gave them a run for the money. And things.
Gil gave a great argument for the Supreme Court.
He did a great job.
9-0, which is very rare. Supreme Court unanimous verdict that said the president is not immune for his private acts, and quite frankly can be served process under those civil restraints that a litigation might ensue and require.
Right. You might have some deference to scheduling, like any case, the other side's not available, you work around it. Maybe the president's a little bit more unavailable.
Do you remember if I was there at the Supreme Court during the oral argument?
I don't remember what was behind me.
See, I was sitting right next to you. I was to your left.
I don't think you were at counsel table.
I got feathers, and see, ladies and gentlemen, this is the following disclaimer. Everything that's come out of Joe's mouth is truly unfortunate. I was to his left
at counsel table.
I was at counsel table with all the boxes. Remember, he made me take every file, and he never touched them. And then I was struggling down the stairs. I wasn't sitting in the audience. I was right next to you. I got the two feathers, just like you
I
did.
got feathers, too.
The quills.
Bill, settle down.
No, this is some BS right now. Some horse hockey.
So you got a victory in the Supreme Court, but did that mean the president had to what ultimately made
the president had to respond to our lawsuit?
Yep.
Had to be treated like any other citizen would when they're sued.
Yep.
Respond, answer questions, give depositions, give documents.
Yeah.
That was a big deal because they didn't want that to happen.
And so
anything on
ultimately,
the road.
all that happen?
It happened.
Yeah, well, it happened,
Yeah,
and then
not with us.
And then we'll just fast forward so we can finish this up because ultimately we did not see the case all the way through.
No.
However, and we have a difference in the story, and we won't go into it because mine's funnier. But it shows right now. You don't even remember me sitting next to you at the Supreme Court table, and we got the tour the night before, and the guy said, "Don't crank the
I remember.
lectern."
There's a lectern where people get up and speak.
250
Okay.
years old lectern.
The clerk of the court says to Gil,
Gives
"Look,
us a private tour at night.
do not. Here it is. What level do you want it?" So Gil says, "Oh, this level." You know, he sets it up. He says, "Do not crank this level.
like-
Don't move it because if you crank it this way, it might go down when you want to make go up."
Plus, it's
you know,
200 some odd years old. It's the
Okay.
original lectern. From
Well,
the Supreme
what does
Court.
Gil do? The first thing he does
When he steps up there to
Cranks
talk,
it.
he
cranks it.
Cranks it.
That's his.
And look, those 9 justices' eyes got as big as silver dollars. They're like, "What in the heck is this guy going to do?" It was an amazing argument, and I was right on the end.
We had Gil and I had cut a deal. Gil was running for Attorney General
He was,
of
for
Virginia.
Yeah.
So, who's going to do the argument, me or Gil? Well, I wanted to do it. He wanted to do it.
Oh, another fight.
So, and I won't tell you who the client wanted to do it. She didn't want to weigh in, but I won't tell you.
Gil.
So,
And Gil,
Billy.
God.
Come out of the bathroom, Bill.
we want you to do the argument. What argument?
Read this only. Do not
Ladies and
stray from
gentlemen,
this document.
narcissism is a terrible thing.
So anyway,
Paid for and authorized by Joe Cammarata's own ego.
So Gil says, "Look, I'll make you a deal. The deal is this. I need this for my campaign. I want to make the arguments, and you could take any deposition you want. You want to take the president's deposition, any witness, you have first dibs. Any press that there is, whatever interview, whatever story, you have the right of first refusal. If you want it, you got it. If not, I'll do it." I said, "All right, Gil, for you, I'll do that." So that morning of the Supreme Court argument, I did Good Morning America. So they had, at the time they were doing makeup. So
Oh, yeah.
So I said to them, "Listen, I think that we'll likely be doing. There'll be TV and stuff. Can you take down my makeup a little bit, but don't take it off?" Okay. So they took my makeup off, and it took it down, but not off. Now I went to the Supreme Court.
Made up.
Sitting at council table in
All
makeup,
dolled up.
all dolled up, look beautiful. Anyway, I could swear that the justices, they looked as close as we were across
Yeah,
the
yeah,
table.
you could touch 'em.
and they're looking down. They're saying, what's
Who's
with
the
that
drag
guy?
queen at the table between the two good-looking guys?
Anyway,
Hey, RuPaul is going to make an argument here today in the United States Supreme Court. RuPaul Cammarata. And so anyway, so we win. We're in there. You know, these guys are on TV all the time. I mean, they've abandoned the office. At this point, I'm running the helm. These guys are on Geraldo, as Gil used to call him, Geraldo, and we always go, "It's Geraldo," and he never got it. But that's another story. So they're on TV. They're famous. Everybody knows them. We fast forward in time. Gil's running for Attorney General. We get this call. However, we got this call was different, but an anonymous call with somebody who wouldn't give it their name, who sympathized with Paula Jones, who had had a similar thing happen to her. Okay. And we find out through using Michael Isikoff and other means that this woman is Kathleen Willey. And so Joe, long story short, gets me on the phone. We got to file a subpoena for witness. A subpoena for witness. We got to get served. And so I'm there working well. And you were on the side of the road going to federal court in Northern Virginia at the time. I'll never forget that. And we get together. You guys get it out there. You get it. You get some guy in Richmond to serve it. Remember that?
do remember.
Okay. As soon as we do, that fax machine starts humming, cutting out. And here's a motion to quash. And Judge Robert Marriage, it's now in his bailiwick because he filed in his court, demanded that you all guys come down there, including
Richmond,
Bob
Richmond.
Bennett. Yeah, and he was going to mediate the suit, which ended this. And this is where the story ends. But we got a lot of stuff, that we can talk about later when you come back. But it ended with them offering you more money than we sued for. We had sued for $600,000 because you had to sue for money. You couldn't get the apology through federal court. Damages is the only determination of how a court measures your injury. and they offered y'all more than $600,000 if you would not take Kathleen Willey's deposition. Is that true? Oh God! All right, thanks for joining the podcast. We had an offer of settlement. Oh Jesus, Joe, Jesus! I mean, I'm going to drive you to the Villages myself. Hey, when's the next bus around here to Happy
They did not want
Acres?
us to take her deposition. That is true, for sure. Okay, and I want to clear one thing because it's going to be public. You said we got her name through Mike Isikoff and other
started the
sources.
process.
Well, Mike Isikoff gave me no information that would lead me to Kathleen Willey. I just want to say that to be clear because he believed it would be a violation of his journalistic ethics to do it. I had given him information, which I could not follow up on because we were busy doing other things. So I said to him, Mike, actually preparing for the Supreme Court argument, Mike, here's this information. This woman claims she had the same problem as Paula Jones. Can you look her up and then give me the information?
Jefferson scholar, husband was a fundraiser,
Husband
a
was-
bundler,
right.
committed suicide.
She worked at
lived
the
in
White
Richmond.
House and things like that. But anyway, the long story short was that I called him up weeks later. I said, you find the woman? Oh, yeah. I said, who is she? Oh, I can't tell you. I said, what do you mean you can't tell me? I gave you the information. He says, well, I told her I won't give her her identity away. Well, I called him every name in the book in my best New York accent.
Dickhead.
That I didn't say.
Dickhead.
Dickhead.
As opposed to dickhead. If you stretch it out, sir, you can really
You think
get your
that
point across.
that sounds better?
You would have gotten her name.
I would have gotten her name. He wouldn't give it up. I knew he wasn't going to give it up, but I figured out.
Put two syllables in head.
Head.
We'll work on that, okay, Joe?
Thank you.
Finish up.
All right. Anyway, he wouldn't
People
give it
got
to
to start their day.
But
They want
that's
to finish
all-
this podcast. It's so compelling. Go.
Yeah, right. I'm never going to be invited back.
I'm gonna have you back after this. I'm gonna start doing my own podcast, just turning left, and I can get you on and get the real story. With Bill's over here. Do you remember that? Like shaking his head, like
I will file an injunction on your ass. I will enjoin you from any such behavior.
Your phone calls will definitely be returned.
There you go.
There you go. And mine too.
So our representation basically ended. We got offered more money than we sued for. We could not get in touch with Paula because by that time, Susan Carpenter McMillan had basically kind of co-opted. You remember that, Joe?
I remember her. Yeah, she
yeah.
co-opted Paula Jones. That I agree with.
And now, we used to say legitimize the illegitimate. That is, everybody thinks this is not a legitimate case. We're going to legitimize that and keep Paula. That was another one of your mantras that we used to say. By this time now, a lot of those factions on the right had decided for themselves they were using her for their own attacks on Clinton, and we could not even contact her to let her know that a settlement more than what she had sued for had been offered. Is that correct? You remember that?
I do remember that we eventually contacted her. I don't
No.
I don't
we
remember
sent her a
having
letter.
trouble.
We sent her a letter. Gil wrote a letter, which you can find on the internet. Gil Davis letter to Paula Jones, and you'll find out that everything Joe has said on this podcast is totally false.
but very entertaining, which is the point.
Which letter are you talking about?
With the
There were
14-page
two
letter
letters-
that we stayed up all night writing.
There were
typing.
two letters that we wrote. What happened
You'll
if you
be
go
a-
to if you
but
go
you'll
to
be a footnote in history. It was one of the quotes in there.
if
which
you go
then
to
became that.
WashingtonPost.com, they have a section archived materials on the Paula Jones case. In that section, there are two letters that Gil and I wrote.
Building,
Right?
No, I typed them. I
so
did
two-
not write that. Is typing.
I'm trying to.
I'm a lawyer and I'm typing their handwriting because Edie could never figure out what you guys were writing.
No. To Paula Jones. But anyway, they're there. We had
And quite frankly, Paula
She
Jones
got-
said in a later interview she didn't even know there was a settlement and that you guys were being blocked from talking to her.
she was co-opted by a friend, Susan Carpenter McMillan, who wanted this case not to go away. She didn't want the case to be settled. She didn't want Paula Jones to accept a statement or any money. And at the time, we had not only a statement.
And that's our opinion. That's our opinion of what was happening.
Oh, of course. I mean, I don't know. I mean, that just the reason I get there is because I heard her tell me that listen, she called the president all sorts of names and things, and so it seemed as if she was more interested, and her husband too, more interested in having a cause as opposed to a case.
Right.
And we didn't want to be part of that.
Right.
They had their own reasons. I think that they truly believed that Paula Jones was not getting enough money, was not getting to be heard. And I think that drove their interest in having the case continue. But anyway, we couldn't get her to agree to resolve the case. We sent her 2 letters. And the 2 letters were that, look, if you don't agree, we're going to have to withdraw.
And so and then history after that, we withdrew from the case. The firm, you and Joe, you and Gil. By that time, you'd started your own law firm, decided not to hire me, and so I was still with Gil. I guess you went another direction, as you said. And so the rest is history because, of course, then we see what happens with the blue dress and Monica Lewinsky. All that happened after we were out of that case. So that led to impeachment. So what we started, 3 guys, or 2 guys and a guy cleaning a bathroom, actually
2 great attorneys and a janitor.
turned out to be a historic moment in time over those years from 1994 to 1998. And I was just honored to be a part of that part. Small part. But in Joe's mind, a lot smaller part than what I remember. And God love Gil Davis, my mentor, my hero. Right now, of course, he suffers from dementia, but that great brain of his, because I know he believes what I said is true, not you. And so on behalf of Gil Davis, I can tell you that my version's the true version, and you're just going to have to eat that. So, but see, that what a great story and what a great career. You've gone on and represented people who sued Bill Cosby for some of the nefarious things that Bill Cosby have done. You've had an incredible legal career, not as good as mine, but I mean something that you can always aspire to do. And
That's right.
And you know what, Joe? Joe used to yell at me, and Joe gives me a look. We were over here on his bill, and he gave me a look. I felt like I was going back to when I was 23 years old, and I'd forgotten to include an exhibit on a pleading, and it rushed all back there. But then I remembered.
When you failed to go simply read 2 sentences on a piece of notebook paper.
That look,
exactly.
That look too. And then I remember you have to call me Senator. No, I'm kidding. But Joe Cammarata, thank you for coming on. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for your advocacy for those that are injured and hurt. But thanks for telling your version and allowing it to mesh with mine. And somewhere in the middle, ladies and gentlemen, you will find the truth. This has been an exciting podcast, has it not?
It's been a lot of fun. Nice to meet you, first of all.
Good to meet you.
I enjoy
Thank
our
you so much.
conversations. And on a serious note, really, I know I've heard from Bill over and over how much he appreciates the time and things that he was taught by you guys at a young age, and ultimately is put him on the right path to help a lot of people, including myself and my family and my business and small businesses across the Commonwealth of Virginia. So nice to meet you. Appreciate you being on the show. It's been awesome.
Thank you so much.
So Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator is powered by Pace-O-Matic. Bill, another one in the books.
These keep getting better and better. We're finally going to have somebody on here to tell the truth in the next podcast. But just listeners, trust me, I know what I'm saying. Because I'm leaning right. I'm State Senator Bill Stanley.
And I'm Hermie Sadler, former NASCAR driver. I'm turning left. This has been another edition of Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator. We'll see you next week.
Take care, everybody.